My parents snapped at me, "Look at your brother. He bought us a house. What have you done for us?" So I said nothing much, just paying the mortgage on that house and letting him keep up his golden boy act. I'm 34 and I've spent my entire life dealing with my family's nonsense. See, I was never the favorite. That title has always belonged to my older brother, Ethan. Ethan could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. He got praised for every little thing. When he got average grades, they acted like he was the next Einstein. When he got his first job at some dead-end sales gig, they called him a business genius. Meanwhile, I could be acing my classes or landing scholarships, and all I'd get was a half-hearted, "That's nice, Jake, but did you hear Ethan got a promotion?" Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not bitter that my brother got attention. What bothers me is how he milked it for all it was worth. He figured out early that as long as he kept up the illusion of being successful, my parents would bend over backward to make sure he never struggled. And struggle, he did, just not in ways you'd expect. Ethan was never the hardworking type. He always had big ideas, but never followed through on any of them. He'd start a business and then let it crash. He'd move to a new city for an amazing opportunity and come back broke 6 months later. Every single time my parents bailed him out. If I ever needed help, crickets. Luckily, I didn't need it. I worked my rear end off, built a successful career, and now I'm in a really comfortable financial position. But you know what happens when you come from an entitled family and you finally make it? They start seeing you as their personal ATM. At first, it was small things. Mom and Dad would say, "Oh, Jake, since you're doing so well, could you help Ethan with rent this month?" Or Ethan would call me and drop hints like, "Man, I just need a little boost to get back on my feet." It's nothing to you, right? I shut that down fast. I have zero problem helping people who actually need it, but I refuse to fund Ethan's lifestyle. Every time I said no, they made me out to be the villain. "You're so selfish, Jake. Ethan's your brother. Don't you want him to succeed? You have more than enough money. What's a few thousand to you?" So I started distancing myself. I still saw them on holidays, but I stopped answering every call. I stopped engaging when they tried to guilt trip me, and for a while, things were quiet. Ethan still played the golden child, and I kept to myself. But then he did something so insane, so utterly ridiculous that I actually thought he was joking at first. And that's where the real story begins. A few months ago, out of nowhere, my parents called me. Not a text, not a guilt-trippy voicemail, an actual call, which was rare. I answered thinking something might be wrong, but instead, my mom sounded giddy. "Jake, you won't believe it. Your brother just did something amazing." Now I've heard this script before. Ethan probably got a new job, or maybe he found an investor dumb enough to throw money at one of his failed business ideas. Either way, I knew exactly how this conversation would go. They'd hype him up, wait for me to say something supportive, and then eventually slip in a request for money. So I played along. "Oh, what did he do? He bought us a house." My mom practically squealed. "A beautiful, brand new house in a gated community. He surprised us with the keys today." I'll be honest, this caught me off guard. Ethan buying a house. This guy never had more than a few $100s in his bank account at any given time. In a gated community, that wasn't just any house. That was expensive. I was skeptical, but kept my voice neutral. Wow. That's generous of him. I know my dad jumped in. It just goes to show how responsible he's become. He's finally settling down, thinking about his future, and he did it all for us. I resisted the urge to roll my eyes. Ethan was about as responsible as a raccoon in a convenience store. There was no way he suddenly had his life together. Something wasn't adding up. "That's great," I said, trying to keep the conversation short. "So, what's the catch?" My parents went silent for a split second, just long enough to confirm my suspicion. "What do you mean, Jake?" "There's no catch. Your brother worked so hard to make this happen." "Uh-huh." "Sure." I didn't press further. Instead, I gave them my usual polite but disengaged response and got off the phone as soon as possible. I knew something was fishy, and sure enough, it didn't take long for the truth to come out. A few days later, Ethan called me. Not a text, not a casual check-in, an actual phone call, which he only ever did when he wanted something. "Hey bro, how's it going?" He started his voice way too cheerful. "What do you want, Ethan?" I cut straight to the chase. "What? Can't a guy just call his little brother to chat?" I let the silence drag on. After a few seconds, he sighed dramatically. "Okay, fine. I do need a little favor, but it's nothing major. Just a tiny thing. Barely anything, really. Spit it out." "So, you know that house I got for Mom and Dad?" "Yeah, well, the bank kind of needs the first payment soon, and I was thinking." I hung up. I didn't even say a word. Just hung up. Within minutes, he called back. I ignored it. Then a text. "Ethan. Dude." My call dropped. Weird timing. LOL. Anyway, as I was saying, I just need a little help this month. I left it on read. 2 minutes later, another text. "Ethan, come on, man. You're rich. It's not even a big deal for you." And there it was. The expectation, the entitlement. Ethan once again assuming my success meant I owed him something. I finally replied, "You bought a house you can't afford and expected me to cover it." Ethan replied. Dude, it's not like that. I totally have it under control. I just need a little boost this month. After that, I'll be fine. Right, because Ethan was totally known for his financial responsibility. I replied, not my problem. That should have been the end of it, but Ethan wasn't giving up that easily. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Mom and a long guilt-ridden text. Mom texted Jake, I don't understand why you're being so cold to your brother. He did something amazing for this family, and now he just needs a little support. You make more money than all of us combined. Are you really going to let your own brother struggle? Oh, so he went crying to Mommy. Classic. Then another text from Ethan. Bro, just think about it. It's for Mom and Dad. You want them to lose their house? And there it was, the manipulation. I was done playing games. Ethan was trying to guilt me into financing a luxury house so he could keep up his golden child act. The house was in his name, his responsibility, yet he somehow thought I'd step in and save the day. Not happening. I decided it was time to dig a little deeper. So I did something Ethan never expected. I called the bank. I won't spoil what I found out just yet, but let's just say Ethan was in way deeper than he was letting on. And when I confronted him about it, that's when the real chaos started. I called the bank the next day early in the morning before Ethan had a chance to try anything else. I didn't even tell him what I was doing. I wanted to know everything without him getting a chance to cover his tracks. I gave them the house's address, explained who I was, and asked if I could get some details about the payments for the property. The person on the other end was nice enough, but when I asked for specifics, I could tell something was off. Well, we can't provide specific account details, sir, due to privacy policies. I'm not asking for his account number, I interrupted, cutting her off before she could go into the spiel. I just need to know the payment schedule and if there are any issues with payments. There was a pause. Well, I can confirm the first payment is due next week, and it's a significant amount, sir. The loan was processed with a sizable interest rate and required a hefty down payment, which Ethan handled. However, there are some concerns about the second payment. I felt my heart drop. This wasn't just a simple loan. This was a bad idea dressed up like success. What kind of concerns? I asked, my voice tight. Well, I'm afraid there's an issue with the credit history he submitted for the loan. It doesn't seem to match the usual criteria for this type of property, and as a result, we've sent him multiple reminders regarding his upcoming payment. I sat back in my chair, running my hand over my face. So Ethan had gotten the house, but now he was completely in over his head. He was in too deep, and he hadn't told my parents a thing. The worst part, he probably never planned on paying it off by himself. That's where I came in. I thanked the woman for her help, hung up, and sat in silence for a few minutes. I wasn't going to let him manipulate me into saving him this time. This wasn't about family loyalty or a brotherly bond anymore. It was about him treating me like his personal bank, and I wasn't going to stand for it. I wasn't sure how I'd confront him, but one thing was clear: I wasn't going to pay a dime. The next few days were tense. Ethan called a few times, but I ignored him. Then my parents started texting me. Dad wrote, Jake, please. Ethan is just trying to do the right thing by the family. You know how much Mom and Dad would appreciate you helping him out. A few hours later, my mom texted too. Jake, you're making this so much harder than it has to be. Ethan worked so hard to get this house. Why can't you help him just a little? It's not like you'll even notice the money gone. The frustration was building inside me, but I kept my cool. I knew exactly where this was headed. They were going to side with Ethan no matter what. I wasn't going to let them guilt trip me into enabling his poor decisions. He had made this mess. It was his problem to fix. Finally, after days of texts and calls, Ethan managed to catch me on the phone. I knew this was coming. He was persistent after all. Jake, he said, his voice dripping with that familiar charm. Come on, bro. I need you here. You're literally the only person who can help me out right now. You know this house means everything to Mom and Dad. They've been raving about it nonstop, and now they're going to lose it because of this stupid loan. I stayed silent for a long moment, just letting the silence stretch out. Ethan, I said slowly, you're asking me to bail you out again. There was a pause. Then he sighed heavily, like I was the one being unreasonable. You don't understand, Jake. I'm doing this for the family. You know that, right? I'm trying to give them everything they've ever wanted, and now you're telling me you can't help. His voice was getting more desperate, but I wasn't buying it. I'd seen this act too many times before. You're not doing this for the family, Ethan. You're doing this for yourself. You bought that house so you could play the hero, so you could show Mom and Dad you're the successful one. But now that it's crashing down, you want me to clean up your mess. He was quiet for a moment. Then, almost in a whisper, he said, You don't even care about me, do you? I felt the pang of something deep in my chest. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe just the familiarity of the manipulation, but I wasn't going to let him pull me back in. You've made that pretty clear over the years, haven't you? I replied coldly. You don't care about me, Ethan. You just care about what I can do for you. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I didn't think you'd be this guy. He finally muttered, his tone almost bitter. I guess I was wrong about you. Before I could respond, he hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone. I had finally reached my breaking point. The next morning, my parents called again. They weren't even trying to disguise their disappointment anymore. Jake, my dad started, his voice cold. You need to help your brother. This is your chance to show him you're there for him. He's not asking for much. Dad, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He's asking for something that isn't mine to give. He made the decision to buy the house. He can figure out how to keep it. Jake, we're asking you to help, and you're refusing after everything we've done for you. The guilt they were trying to throw at me was almost comical. They'd never once asked me to help with anything that wasn't for them. And that was the turning point. Ethan had crossed a line, and my parents weren't any better. They'd chosen him again. I knew right then that if they were going to keep treating me like this, I was done. But I had one last card to play. I wasn't just going to let this go. The next few days were intense, but I wasn't going to let myself get emotionally dragged back into their drama. I spent my time focusing on work and keeping my distance from Ethan and my parents. But every time I checked my phone, there was a new message from them. It was like they thought I could just ignore everything and magically make Ethan's problems disappear. But this time, something was different. My dad called me again, but I didn't pick up. Instead, I waited for the voicemail. He left a message, the sound of his voice filled with frustration and disappointment. Jake, he said, this isn't about the money. It's about family. Ethan needs you. You can't just abandon him like this. If you don't step up now, I don't know what we'll do. I thought you understood what it meant to take care of each other. Please call me back. I just stared at the screen, the message echoing in my mind. Take care of each other. If that's what it meant to them, then I was done. They didn't need me to take care of them. They just needed me to solve their problems for them. A few hours later, I got a text from Ethan. It was short and to the point. If you don't help me, I'm going to lose everything. This house is going to ruin me, and you'll be the one who made that happen. Are you really going to let me go under? Do you want to be the one to watch me lose everything? The words stung. I wasn't going to lie. There was a part of me that felt something guilt maybe. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't my mess to clean up. He'd made his choices. I'd been there for him in the past, and every time I ended up paying the price. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I spent the next few hours sitting with the idea weighing everything in my head. And then it clicked. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I got a call from my parents. This time I picked up. Jake, we need to talk, my mom said, her voice tense. Ethan's in trouble. You have to help him. You know he can't handle this on his own. Mom, Ethan's not a kid anymore. He's an adult, and he's made a choice that he can't back out of. It's not my responsibility to fix it for him. You're being so stubborn, she snapped. This is family, Jake. You can't just sit back and let him lose everything. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. You keep saying it's about family, but all I see is you asking me to bail him out. You're just enabling him, Mom. He's not learning anything if I step in every time things go south. Her silence on the other end was almost deafening. Please, Jake, she finally whispered. This is the last time I'll ask you. We're begging you. That's when I decided to play my hand. I'll help. I said, making sure my voice was as calm and measured as possible, but it's going to be on my terms. There was a pause, and I could almost hear the hope rising in her voice. What do you mean I'll help, Ethan? I continued. But I'm not writing him a check. I'm not paying his bills. What I will do is help him find a way to get out of the situation. I'll cover the fees for him to sell the house and pay off the loan, but he needs to move out. And I'm going to make sure he understands that if he ever pulls something like this again, I'm done. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could tell she was processing what I said. She clearly didn't like it, but I wasn't going to let them push me into a corner again. I wasn't going to let Ethan's poor decisions dictate my life. Finally, my mom spoke again, but her voice was trembling. Now you're really going to make him do that? Yeah, I said, because he's not going to learn anything if we keep enabling him. This isn't the way to handle things, and I'm not going to be part of it anymore. There was a long pause, and then she hung up. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course Ethan wasn't going to let go that easily. A few hours later, I got another text from him. It was short, but the desperation in it was unmistakable. You're really doing this. You're going to make me lose everything. You're going to ruin my life over this. If you don't help me, you're not my brother anymore. I ignored his message. This wasn't my responsibility. A few days passed without hearing from anyone in my family. I thought maybe they'd finally accepted the decision I'd made. I was wrong. It all came to a head when my mom called me again. This time there was no pretense, no niceties. She was furious and her voice was tight with anger as she spoke. Jake, how could you do this to him? How could you stand by and watch him lose everything? Her words were sharp, each one cutting deeper than the last. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't the son I raised. He's your brother. Don't you care about him? I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to shout at her to tell her exactly why I was doing what I was doing, but I forced myself to stay calm. It wasn't the first time she'd reacted like this, and I had learned long ago that getting into a shouting match with her only made things worse. I do care about him, Mom, but caring about him doesn't mean I should throw away my own future to fix his mistakes. He's an adult. He needs to take responsibility for his life. I've been there for him over and over again, and I'm done. If he's not willing to learn from his mistakes, then that's on him. There was a long pause on the other end. When she spoke again, her voice was low, almost like she was trying to hold back tears. You're really going to let him fall, aren't you? After everything we've done for you, after everything we've given you, you're going to abandon us like this? I felt a bitter laugh bubble up in my throat, but I kept it inside. You've given me everything. Mom, you've given me a lifetime of enabling your son's bad decisions. You've taught me to pick up the pieces when he's too careless to do it himself, and you expect me to keep doing it. I'm done being the bank, Mom. I'm done. I could hear her take a shaky breath on the other end. We've always been a family, Jake. You're breaking it apart. Maybe it's already broken, I replied, the words coming out sharper than I intended. Maybe it's been broken for a long time and I've just been too blind to see it. The call ended with silence, and I stared at my phone wondering if that was it, if my decision had truly cut the last tie between me and my family. That evening, as I was winding down for the night, I got another message. This one was from Ethan. It wasn't the usual angry text, but it had the same bitter tone. You know, you've really shown your true colors. I thought you were my brother. I guess I was wrong. You're just like them. You think you're better than me because you've got money, but when it comes down to it, you're just as selfish as they are. I don't need your help. I'll figure it out on my own. But don't ever call me again. I'm done with you. I stared at the text for a long time, letting it sink in. It stung, yes. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was a blessing in disguise. Ethan wasn't asking for help anymore. He was pushing me away, and that was the final sign that I needed to let go. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The next few days were quiet. No calls, no messages. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe without the constant weight of family expectations pressing down on me. But then a few days later, my dad called again. I debated whether or not to pick up, but eventually I answered. Jake, he said, and his voice was more resigned than angry. This time we need to talk. About what I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. I wasn't in the mood for another guilt trip. About everything he said, sighing deeply. About Ethan, about the house, about how you've completely turned your back on us. Do you realize what you've done? I haven't turned my back on you, Dad. I've been watching you all enable Ethan for years. I've been watching him make mistake after mistake, and every time you've come running to me to fix it. You've conditioned him to think he can do whatever he wants without consequences, and I'm done being the person who cleans up after him. He didn't respond for a moment, and I could feel the distance growing between us, like the words I was saying were building walls that I didn't know how to take down. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. We've done everything for you, Jake. We've always had your back. You've never had to struggle like Ethan. You've always been the one who was responsible. But you think that's enough, don't you? You think that because you've got money, you don't owe us anything anymore? I was quiet for a long time, and when I finally spoke, I could feel the finality in my words. I owe you nothing, Dad. Not when all you've ever done is make me feel like I'm responsible for fixing everyone else's problems. You raised me to be self-sufficient, but when it came time for me to stand up for myself, you all decided I wasn't family anymore. I can't keep doing this. I'm done. You need to figure it out. The line went silent again, and for the first time, I felt like I wasn't the one trying to fix everything. My dad's voice came back soft, but firm. I guess this is it then. I don't know who you are anymore, Jake. I don't know how I'm supposed to look at you after this. And with that, the call ended. That was the last time I spoke to my dad. I took a deep breath and leaned back in my chair staring at the phone screen. I knew that by cutting them off, I had severed the last remaining connection to my past. There was no going back now. I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders, the sense of freedom washing over me. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I had given them chances and they'd squandered every one of them. It was time for me to finally live my life free from the constant pull of my family's expectations. I didn't need to keep fixing their mistakes. I had my own life to live now, and it was going to be on my terms. No more guilt. No more obligation. And as for Ethan? Well, I didn't know what his future held, but it wasn't my problem anymore. He would have to figure it out on his own, just like I had to. I had made my choice, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace.